Hello you guys, welcome back to a new video, or welcome if you are new. It's been a while since we touched base and talked just about kind of everything and give updates and everything like that. Also, let me just address the elephant in the room. I'm in my car in a parking garage because I just dropped Augie and Stevie off to get groomed and I'm over on another side of the city. I wanted to get this filmed today to have it go up for Sunday for you guys. Today's Friday and I knew I wouldn't have time necessarily to like go all the way back home to film it. I just didn't want to do that driving, even though they're probably going to be there for kind of a fat minute, because I remember last time I took Augie to this place, they took like a couple of hours. There's two of them and Stevie needs a haircut and everything, so they're probably going to be there for a minute. But let's just hop into this Q&A. I asked you guys over on Instagram, which if you're not following me on Instagram, it's just at Soph. Make sure you guys are following me on there, especially because if TikTok does end up going away for real, I will be over there very frequently. That'll probably quickly transform into like my main platform, where right now I kind of consider TikTok to be my main platform. It'll kind of become Instagram. I just post on there a lot anyway, so make sure you guys follow me on there because I also interact with you guys a lot on there. Very first question is, how's Stevie doing with alerting? So a lot of questions about Stevie. Let me see if I had any others screenshotted. Okay, yeah, someone else asked, how does the diabetic alert dog help you? I'm interested in how she knows / does this for you. So a lot of Stevie questions. So let's just talk about kind of like what she does and how she's doing. What diabetic alert dogs do is they can smell changes in blood sugar, and they are trained starting at a very young age. Stevie specifically was imprinted with a low blood sugar smell almost immediately after being born. I think 24 hours later or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but she was imprinted almost immediately after being born, like within her first few days. They are trained to alert when they smell a blood sugar below a certain number and above a certain number. Technically, they're kind of trained to alert below a certain number and then learn to alert above a certain number. They kind of like automatically learn that, but that's kind of getting into the nitty-gritty. Essentially, the way her brain is like wired, just from all the training she's had throughout her 10 months of life, when she smells a low blood sugar, she associates it with she's going to be getting treats and she's going to be happy and praised and fed, and she's going to experience endorphins. So when they smell that low blood sugar smell or that high blood sugar smell, it excites them. Like it makes them happy because they know what is to come. So that's like the basis of it. So she's also taught to paw me, like a formal alert if she comes over and she sits and she paws, and that's like the perfect alert. And alert dogs are really special because they can smell rise and fall of blood sugar, so they can alert you before technology. And so a lot of people ask me questions like, why do you need a diabetic alert dog if you already have like a Dexcom? The reason for that is because she will sense the changes likely many minutes before my Dexcom, in like ideal scenarios. Obviously, for example, she can early alert. So say she alerts me and I'm like 120 and I'm like, okay, I don't know why she alerted me, right? I set a timer for like 15 minutes and I check my blood sugar again in 15 minutes. Say I've dropped down to like 85 at this point, right? Say it was like a big drop. My Dexcom may still say like 115 going down. And to me, I see 115 going down and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wait even longer to treat that, right? But our Dexcoms are like 15 minutes behind or ahead, depending. But usually, in my experience, behind. So if I only had my Dexcom, I would wait even longer. And then by the time my Dexcom finally said I was like 75, I might actually be 55 if I was falling fast enough. And with Stevie or alert dogs, so she alerted me at 120 and then I checked again in 15 minutes and I was 85, I'll see like, oh wow, that's a huge drop in 15 minutes. And I can either like have a better idea of what my blood sugar actually is, and then also possibly, if I decide to like treat that low right then and there, depending on like other circumstances, obviously, like how much insulin's on board, blah, 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 like whatever. Or I could decide to treat it and prevent a low from even happening. If I'm like, okay, I see I'm falling, I'm 85 now, like I'm gonna have 15 grams of carbohydrates, I might be able to prevent the 55 blood sugar that I had because my Dexcom was behind, if that makes sense. Another reason I really wanted her help was because I do live alone, and there has been many a times when I've had very scary low blood sugars while alone. Stevie can't stop a low blood sugar from happening. Like, she's not like a magic dog that can like prevent me from having a low blood sugar, but what she can do is make me more knowledgeable and aware before it's an emergency. You know, like, even if it's only 5 minutes, like, that makes a really big difference in terms of blood sugar. So if she can alert me, it's such a big help. Whether it's 2 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, it's a huge help and makes the emergency low blood sugars a little bit less of a surprise in some cases. So that's kind of what she does. Now, how is she doing? She's doing well. Dogs take a long time to adjust to new surroundings. Every dog. English Cocker Spaniels are very emotional dogs, and Stevie is a very emotional English Cocker Spaniel. So she's taking an even longer time to adjust. And it's funny because if I had just got her from like a breeder or a shelter or whatever, I would think that she was adjusting really well, because there's really no like alarming behaviors or anything like that. Like, she's a really well-behaved dog. She seems well adjusted. But then when you look at her performance of like low blood sugars that she's missing or false alerts she's making, which means like they alert you but you're not actually high or low, the little mistake she's making is actually information for me and for her trainer of like her mental state. So as she's like adjusting, we can look at, because every single alert or missed alert I put in this Google form that me and the trainer both like have, and she looks at the data, and with that information can nitpick little changes to make in Stevie's day-to-day life, and how we're doing training at home, and how I do things with Stevie, like a bunch of little things to end up with the perfect formula in which Stevie's highly accurate most of the time, and I'm doing everything I need to and have to do for Stevie to get there. So it's obviously a process. It can take really like a year for the dog to really figure it out, you know? And also, she's 10 months. She's still a puppy and still technically being trained. And so with all things considered, she's doing great. Okay, this question, I don't know why I'm answering this. It's kind of random, but someone asked, what's the most annoying quality a person could have? And I feel like I've talked about this before. Like, this has been my pet peeve for the longest time, but I absolutely hate arrogant people. It's not confidence. It's not being sure of yourself. Arrogance. Oh, it's so gross to me. Like, it's an immediate ick. It's an immediate, like, okay, I want nothing to do with you. It's just so icky to me. I hate it. I hate braggers. I hate arrogant people. I hate snobby people. Like, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Nothing grinds my gears more than arrogance. I'm just like, who do you think you are? To be honest, I think so much less of you if you are arrogant. Like, I'm just like, we don't align if you are an arrogant person. Next question. If you could pick one book to read again for the first time, which would it be? I know my answer right off the bat. My answer right off the bat is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. You guys, you know this is my favorite book if you know anything about me, but I have recommended it to people who have also been like, oh my god, that book was everything. That's my new favorite book. Like, I put so many people onto that book and every single person loves it. That book, oh my god, the plot twist in there, you think you know the plot twist about 100 times and then you still don't know the plot twist. So it is just the craziest book. It's a psychological thriller, and I would read it 100 times over if I didn't already know how it ended. Oh my god, it was such a journey and so much fun to read, and it really, I feel like, is the book that really like kick-started me into like, wow, I love reading. Like, I'd been reading for a few months at that point, but I got to that book and I was like, oh my god, like, this book is everything to me. I need to keep reading just in general. And I swear that's like the book that really got me hooked on reading a couple years ago. Someone asked, what is a quality or something that you miss about the old you? And then they said, love you and seeing you evolve. Thank you. Something that I miss about the old me is my ignorance and my naivete. I just miss life before my brain fully developed and before chronic illness, because it was so unserious, like my life. It was just so, it was like blissful. Like even when I had things go wrong, it's funny because like I'd have little things go wrong and they would impact me so much more than they do now. Like I was just more like reactive and highly emotional, and like little things got to me more. So it's interesting I'm saying that I was like more blissful then. Nothing's quite like a chronic illness diagnosis, especially something like type 1 diabetes. Nothing's quite like it, where your brain suddenly has to think of all these different things to do the work for an organ that should be automatic within your body. Like I'm not even gonna sit here and try to explain it to you, because if you don't do it yourself, you will never be able to conceptualize what it's like. And that sounds crazy, but it's like, I use this example of like when I went skydiving, the feeling of skydiving is something you can't conceptualize unless you've gone skydiving, because there's nothing else like it. Like there's no other experience that compares. So I can't be like, oh, it feels like this, you know, like, oh, the sensation is like this, because it's unlike anything else. And like that's how living with chronic illness is too. It's like I can find things somewhat similar to be like, you know, when you're feeling this way, like it's kind of like that, but it still just doesn't compare to what living day in and day out for the rest of your life with a chronic illness is like. And I don't know, I just miss before I had that information. Like I miss when a bagel was a bagel and ice cream was ice cream, whereas now it's like a bagel is 60 carbs. I miss when everything was just as it was and it didn't have to be more complex than that. And I just miss that ignorance of like, I wake up and my whole day is just what I want to eat, what I want to do, what I want to think. And now it's like I wake up and my world revolves around my blood sugar and keeping myself alive and healthy. And I just think that took a lot of youthfulness away from me. First of all, the trauma of being diagnosed took a lot of life from me, it feels. But also, yeah, just I feel like a lot of innocence was lost when I was diagnosed, and I miss that youthfulness of like not knowing. My favorite tattoo, I think it's my hand tattoo. I have this hand tattoo here and it says softly. I get asked all the time if it's a Clairo reference, and it's not, but I do love that song. I just think it's a beautiful word, softly. And I also just liked the idea of like living a soft life, like living softly. I just like the word. I like the way it looks in cursive. I also like the Clairo song that like did play into like that word choice, but it's mostly just like representing like living softly, like slowing down, being gentle with myself, with others, compassionate, empathetic with myself and others, just slowly. But I also really love my Augie tattoo right here and my honey bear. Those two are some of my favorites as well. Someone said, compare and contrast life at the old house versus new house, how you feel, the vibe, etc. I'm so obsessed with my new house. Like my new house literally feels like my brain threw up in it. It feels like my Barbie dream house. Like it just feels so me. Every corner is just filled with like things that remind me of things or people in my life, and pictures of people who mean a lot to me, and handwritten notes and this and that. That's just like memories. Like my whole house is just things that mean something to me, and colors that make me happy, and little things that spark joy. It's literally my Barbie dream house, where it's just like, it's this little home, cozy, warm, sunlit, welcoming, safe environment. And like with my two dogs, like I just feel so at peace there. I just feel really happy and safe and good there. I liked my old house for sure. I loved my old house, but it just felt in the end too big, too vacant, and I wanted something cozier. But I was happy there for sure. But I definitely feel more at home and at peace at my new place. I have answered this before, but this is like my favorite advice that I give to people, and I've given it a lot throughout my life, because I think people come to me for this kind of thing a lot just because I am so open about my sexuality. But someone said, tips for how to deal with unsupportive or homophobic parents. And this is advice that I always give to people, and I forget where I originally learned this, But it does apply to really anything in your life, but specifically things like this with your sexuality, or maybe like gender exploration or gender identity, whatever it is probably always going to be some sort of pushback or lack of support from someone somewhere in your life at some point, unfortunately. Especially with parents, the advice I always give is they don't have to understand it, they just have to accept it. And I think that's even something you could say to them, like, look, let's just say you're a lesbian. I'm a lesbian. I know that you don't understand that that could be possible. I know you don't understand sexuality. You don't have to understand. You just have to accept that that is who I am and what I identify with and who I love. It almost doesn't, I mean, I'm sure the worst of the worst will have something to say about it, but it almost doesn't really leave room for them to say much. I mean, I guess they could say like, well, I don't understand it and I'm not going to accept it. But then it's like, then I don't even care if you accept it. Like, if someone's not even willing to just let it go and let it be, why are we even stressing about what they think? Because clearly they don't have a complex enough brain to be able to like, okay, I don't get this, but it is what it is. It's not hard. There's a lot of things that I just simply do not understand. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to understand, but I accept that others feel that way, or others believe this, or others think that, like whatever it is. And I know it's hard when it's your parents, because of course you want them to accept you and understand you. But I think if you are being forced to find some sort of middle ground, that's a really good place to start. You don't have to understand it. You just have to accept it. You just have to let go and let me. And hopefully they'll respond at least somewhat okay, and over time grow into it and get more comfortable with it. And honestly, a lot of times, not always, but I've seen this a lot of homophobic parents, or whatever sort of phobic they are, transphobic, whatever, a lot of them end up coming around when they see that their child is happy. And I think that's important for you to remember on your end. While they're not accepting right now, maybe having in the back of your head, like, they may still one day. And so don't let their lack of support or their judgment or their hatred towards a certain group or belief or preference or whatever, like, don't let them and their beliefs stop you from you and yours. This is the last question I'll answer, because it's funny that I'm starting to kind of get this question, because never really have until recently. But someone asked, do I want kids in the future and when? And I'm realizing I'm at that age where, you know, it's normal and not far-fetched for people my age to be having a kid. Like, I'm no longer at the age where, like, when someone has a kid, it's like, oh, they're really young. Granted, 25 is young, 100%. But like, when a 25-year-old has a kid, people don't have the same reaction as like a 21-year-old or a 22-year-old. Like, everyone's always like, oh, that's really young. When you're 25, people are kind of more like, oh yeah. But let me just tell you, I'm nowhere near having a child. But in the grand scheme of life, I guess maybe, because like, I'd love to have one within the next decade. I mean, within the next decade, I'll be 36 because I turned 26 this year. So like, yeah, I'll have a kid in the next decade, probably, hopefully. So in the grand scheme of life, sure, it's soon, but not short term. Like, short term, get engaged and married, but that's even long term. Like, that's years. So I'm not there yet. My next step would be obviously engagement and marriage, but that's years. So I'm not there yet, but I most definitely want kids in the future, and I most definitely want to be a mom. I want to bring my children into a financially stable, emotionally stable, healthy, happy, I was gonna say family, but parents. And when I reach that, then I will think about having kids. Not yet. That's it for the little Q&A. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let's go into Erewhon. Let's grab some colostrum. Such a weird thing to be running an errand to get, but. Hey guys, here from my editing quarters. I just wanted to say, this video cuts off abruptly because I thought I was gonna include this in a vlog, but it ended up being pretty long, and so I decided to just make it its own video, so it has a really weird ending. But I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed this little Q&A. If you have any other questions that you're wanting answered, maybe just comment them, and if I do a Q&A in the future or something, I can answer those. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I will see you guys so super soon in the next one. Mwah. Bye.